So yeah, as you've said, there are many use cases. One of them for sure is in the dairy industry. It has been greatly inspired basically by OpenVino. And you can see that many things are familiar, not only from a perspective regarding the certification process itself, but also regarding the challenges that we are facing. In this case here in Germany or in Europe, maybe in total, not only in, I mean, you have customers also obviously in Europe. I think I saw someone in Spain, but it's pretty familiar, and we will jump right into the topic. So I've been following Kleros for quite some time now, and as I've said, Mike, you really with OpenVino have been the inspiration for this entire topic. And I started working in the food company roughly 3 years ago, and I noticed that one of the big topics is the difference in quality of the product itself, and the quality that is produced by the farmers and that is also certified. In regard of certain standards that they need to fulfill in order to be bio certified or whatever kind of certification there is, animal health certification, you name it. I think everyone knows what is meant by that. So the challenges in the dairy industry is basically on the one hand side for the consumers and also for the farmers. As you can see on the left hand side, basically what the consumers really want is more transparency. They are, I think, they determine their spending behavior more and more on transparency. They want to know what kind of product they are consuming. They want to know what's the process behind it, how was it made, is it sustainable even. Yeah, they're focusing more on the environmental challenges that we're all facing, and therefore they want to make sure that they're doing their part. And I've seen in the past years that there's a certain shift to more and more, not only from the regulators, but from the customers who drive it on their side also, to a more sustainable and organic approach in the dairy industry, leading to also certain improvements in certifications regarding animal health. And those factors are more and more time consuming also for the farmers, yeah, because with raising limits and raising regulations, they have to spend more and more time also on bureaucracy. And that's really frustrating for them, because they would rather be out in the field, out in the barn, working on the product, working on their daily work. For the farmers themselves, it's also a costly thing, as you have said. It costs quite some, not only time, but also money in order to get certified. It's also pretty exhausting for them. As you said, there are lots of things that they have to answer up front. Usually they get sent a questionnaire containing up to 100 questions that they have to fill in. Most of them also are not really easy to fill in and leave some room for interpretation. But at the end of the day, you could say that the most frustrating thing for them is really having been robbed of the possibility to really work on their product and on their farm, and instead have to do a lot of bureaucracy. So as I'm working for a dairy company that is totally owned, or the ownership is totally on the side of the farmers themselves, I am usually in contact with them and have experienced them complaining about those challenges that they are facing. And therefore, I remembered Mike and his approach and thought this would be also suitable for the dairy industry, and we can jump right in how for example, a self-certification could look on the dairy side. Usually it's like this, and that's for all certification. They have a lot of stuff in common. Basically, it's a focus on the crop that they feed to their animal stock. It's the animal shelter and the environment in total. And what's also commonly used or common request is that it has not to be in contact with any genetically engineered food or whatsoever that could be used on the farm. So reaches from food to animals and to soil needs to be in any case clear of genetically engineered stuff in total. And the process itself, of course, there needs to be a list curated. Yeah, we need to stick together, or have partly already done what the requirements are in order to get certified. And the process, as you can see, is basically the same as it is for OpenVino. Yeah, it's a self-certification, meaning that the farmer can supply all of the data that is necessary. Of course, it comes along with the deposits or the process itself. I think I don't need to focus too much on it, as you're all aware of it now, since Mike has talked about it. And I think Federico was talking about it also in the beginning. The process, therefore, is almost aligning accordingly, meaning that it will be checked, yeah, in case everything's fine. There will be a refund regarding the deposit, and the farmer can enjoy his newly acquired certification. In case it does not get approved, the process is a bit different, but let's check first how the farmer can collect the data and distribute it. So especially in the bio-certificated farms, they have been heavily investing in the past 10 to 15 years, meaning that technology is surprisingly up to date. And many of them already work with RFID chips, giving them the opportunity, for example, because this is usually one of the requirements for every certification, that it is proven that, for example, the animal is spending a certain amount of time out roaming on the farmer's land, yeah, and not being locked away in the barn. And they're usually doing this by RFID, so there's a lot of IoT data that they're already collecting. They have the technology for it, so it's no additional work for the farmer himself to put in the data and collect it, and also fulfill then the requirements given in our curated list. The second thing is, in their everyday work, usually they have a smartphone on hand, so they can document photographic evidence, if you will, like, for example, cropping status, cropping plan, what they're working with, which could easily help to get information, like is the cropping plan matching what he's doing out in the field? Yeah, is the barn itself in a certain condition, in a good condition, so that animals will not be harmed, and stuff like that. Really does not really take him additional time, since he has it on hand anyhow. He can work on it any day. It's not then that he has at the end of the year need to get certified and has to put together all the data, costing him lots of time. Yeah. Another sure thing is that he has to supply invoices, for example, or bookkeeping for other certifications that are already in place currently, and he could use that evidence, of course, also for biodigital certification. So simply putting a photograph online, stating that, for example, the feed that he has bought is matching a certain quality standard, and therefore is in accordance with the rules that we've set here. Last thing is that many of them are already using certain sensors, for example, measuring the farmland, the soil and the humidity of the farmland. The data is also collected. In case it is not, there are currently a lot of solutions out on the market that in comparison to what they have invested and what they usually invest, rather on the cheap side. So the collection and distributing data, I think for them, is basically on the one hand side data that they already have to supply on other sides, for example, income statement regarding to tax, or which is pretty easily done by using their smartphone and simply collecting the data while working on a daily basis. So in case the product is not certified, that's the second way. Once he has entered all the data as described now, it takes the usual step, as Federico has already explained it in the beginning. I really don't think that I have to go into detail here. I think everyone is aware of it in the community. If not, they have seen it now many times in this call. Basically, it's the same thing. It goes to then the Kleros court. The jurors will decide, is the farmer trying cheat his way into the certification, or did maybe a mistake, simply a mistake happen, and he, without any malicious thoughts, uploaded data that is not matching the certification standard, then this will of course be clarified using Kleros. I don't want to spend much time here. I think everyone's aware of that. So the real use cases that we are currently having, so I'm working together already with a few farmers that I've identified who I think portray a good average of the farmers that work together with my company, the company I work for. And for them, the comparison is really a game changer, because usually in the traditional way, as I've said already, it's depending on the farm size, but they spend between 3 and 4K euro on a yearly average to get certified or recertified, in addition to minimum 2 days that they have to put in to answer the questionnaire, the bureaucracy, and also show the auditor around on their farm, and that's costing them a lot of nerves and a lot of time. So it's a time-consuming element also. And the last thing is, it's of course, and that's was the most surprising thing for me, not only working in the dairy industry, but also being a customer. The customer really does not have any clue what has been checked, when it has been checked, and by whom it has been checked. So the transparency is basically non-existent. It's, as a customer, you just have to trust that the certification process was working in the way it was intended. But we all know this, of course, does not apply for all farmers, but there's always at least one black sheep. Yeah. And that's, as a customer, I think that's frustrating, because I really want to know, what am I consuming? What am I eating? What am I putting into my body at the end of the day? And the digital version, of course, has room for a lot of improvements for the farmer themselves. I mean, it's a low cost effort for them compared to the traditional way. I mean, in case things turn out well, their invest is basically minimum. Yeah, it's time saving, because on the one hand side, they're collecting data on a daily basis, for example, in a convenient way, like using their smartphone, or uploading data that they would have to use for other stuff, tax calculations, or invoicing or bookkeeping. So that's for them not an additional amount of time that they have to put in. And the last and most, I think, most impressive aspect is the full transparency of the entire process, which I think can be really a competitive advantage today already, and much more in the future, because I think the demand for a transparent process on the customer side is only increasing. At least that's what happened in the past years, and I'm very sure this will continue in the upcoming years. And of course, also, it gives you a certain independence from certification institutes, because on the one hand side, yeah, sure, they are also more or less relying on you as a farmer, because you are their customer and they want to certify you in order for you to return next year and pay basically the same amount again. But you're also, as a farmer, depending on them. Once, for example, you're having problems with your auditor, or in any case are influenced or under pressure from the auditing institute, things turn out quite bad for you as a farmer. And therefore, in this transparent process for everybody visible, it's much harder to be under pressure or get into a stream where you're basically treated unfair. Yeah. So all in all, I think the transparency is the most valuable asset that we are having in this digital certification process. What challenges are we facing currently, or what are maybe not showstoppers, but are things that we are currently working, or I am currently working on? The initial cost, I think there's not much threat, because they already have heavily invested in technological features in the past years. So that's a green light from my side. What maybe is a bit critical or needs attention is the privacy. I think Mike has shown something similar. He stated that, for example, wineries do not want to publicly display, for example, how much lead is in their product. That's in the dairy industry basically the same. So, for example, let's take a look at animal health. Of course, if someone in your flock, some animal in your flock is having health problems, you do not want to display that to everyone, because at the end of the day, the customer could get a wrong impressions. Like, for example, oh, animal health is not taking serious on that farm, which is in most cases absolutely not the case. But anyhow, this would be sensible data from them. And I think this is really something that they do not want to have publicly displayed. So I'm very curious what Mike has done here. And maybe all also have to put in a lot of effort in order to find a solution that on the one hand side does not compromise the process, but also gives the farmer a certainty that his data is in good hands. Yeah. And the process itself is also a bit critical, because as I've seen, farmers are very reluctant on new technology and new steps. So the current, let's say, frontrunner cases that I'm currently working on with a lot of farmers is a good way to ensure that we can overcome this obstacle by simply showing them, hey, take a look, we have done the following with your colleagues. They usually they are very well aware of what their colleagues are doing, and they have a great network and communicate a lot. So I'm counting here on mouth-to-mouth propaganda, if you will. Yeah. So if they've seen that it's working for other farmers and that they are actively saving costs, which is a substantial aspect for them, then I'm very positive that we can overcome the reluctance regarding the process and the entire new field of having this blockchain certified, which is certainly something that they have never come across in their professional life. And on the other hand, we have also obstacles to face regarding the customer, so the end customer who will consume the product. On the one hand side, I think the technology, which was formerly maybe a problem for the farmer, I think will be greatly adapted by the broader public in Germany, because there is, as I've stated initially, a big demand for transparency, especially in the food and farming industry. So therefore, for example, simply providing a QR code is already a big benefit for them. And I'm sure that the German broader public, especially on the bio side, will be very keen on seeing how products are certified, and that they can fully transparently see how it was certified, who certified it, and in the entire process, how their product was made. And that gives them usually a great feeling, and therefore I think will drive demand and can really be a competitive advantage. On the other hand, what really is critical, you need to make it commonly known. Yeah. So the popularity is critical, I think. The entire project at the end of the day can only be successful if the popularity hits a certain level, since this is also a crucial argument that is needed in order to convince the farmers that their market really, or their product really has a competitive advantage on the market itself. So what do you expect for the upcoming days and weeks even ahead? So multiple farmers are already interested in it. I've been currently working with two of them. Two others are waiting already, you could say in line. So at the end, at the beginning, I'm spending a lot of time with them collecting the data, as I want the initial cases to be absolutely bulletproof, yeah, in order to show a broader public and also show their farming colleagues that we are doing solid work here, which is not hurting their business, saves time for them, is not as time consuming as they are used to it, really saves cost, and also has a general advantage maybe on the market side or on the marketing side. On the other hand, we are building, of course, a front end to make it as convenient for the farmer as possible, to integrate all the data into the process itself, and also make it happening that it is integrated into the entire Kleros system, you could say. And that's currently what we are working on. I would be very glad if I could give you an update in a few weeks, maybe months even, and let you know how this entire process turned out. So last but not least, I have not introduced myself at the beginning. My name is Dennis. I'm working for, as you have maybe already noticed now, a bigger dairy company in the southwestern part of Germany. And as said, I would be very happy to talk to all of you again in a few weeks.